Hello, guys. This is another election prediction. This time we have Andrew Cuomo, former governor of New York, versus former President Trump. And the only way this scenario happens is if somehow Andrew Cuomo wins the Democratic primary in New York and wins an election there, because all you have to do in New York in a governor's race is just be a Democrat and you'll probably still win. But Andrew Cuomo, like the polling showed, he would only win by a likely margin in the state of New York against the Republican there. So, and plus, he wouldn't win a nationwide primary. The only way this would happen is if it was a contested convention. That's if a candidate doesn't get him the majority of the votes and somehow the establishment Democrats decide to go crazy and nominate him. That's like the only way this scenario could ever happen. So let's get right into this. First off, I'm actually going to be careful about certain states. New York largely just has a huge hatred of Trump. They'll still vote for him over by 10%. Let me do the red states first, because that'll be a lot easier in this election prediction. Alaska, of course. And South Carolina. Okay, Illinois would largely be probably solidly Democratic. Vermont as well would largely, and Massachusetts too, because they just don't like Trump at all. Okay, I think we're good to go. Let's do the solid red states. Ohio and Iowa are not going to be competitive at all. I think independent voters would probably hate Cuomo nationwide. They hate him in the state of New York, so it would probably apply to the rest of these states as well. Texas would probably be a safe state in an election like this. Florida would be an 8 to 9 point Trump victory, almost safe. North Carolina, 6-point victory for Trump. Probably maybe even go to 8 points, honestly. State of Georgia, almost a likely state against Andrew Cuomo. It would be a 4-point victory for Donald Trump here. In Colorado, it's a largely very progressive state, so it'd still be a likely victory for Andrew Cuomo here. However, the state of Arizona would probably actually go to Trump by a likely margin. Same with Nevada as well, just because of how hated Cuomo is, and with independent voters, you do pretty badly here with them. The state of Washington and Oregon. Oregon, I could actually see going to lean in this scenario, just barely. Well, Washington, probably an 8-point victory for Andrew Cuomo against Trump. So let's head over to the Rust Belt. Rust Belt, you would lose Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan, all by just likely margins because of the sheer hatred for him with all those allegations against him. He would not do well at all in either of these areas. Even Nebraska's second, Trump would win it against Cuomo. New Mexico is it'll be extremely close. So I think it would end up going to Trump, believe it or not, just by a narrow, lean margin. Democrats should stay far away from nominating Andrew Cuomo as their nominee. Minnesota also would end up going to Trump by a lean margin just because of how much he's crushing with independents against Cuomo. Or honestly would be likely a third-party challenger in this election. So let's go to New Hampshire, and Maine would probably end up going to Trump by both lean margins. New Hampshire could have the possibility of going likely, but I doubt it. Maine's first would probably still end up going to Andrew Cuomo by a lean or no, likely margin. Connecticut would probably end up staying. I could see it staying as a likely margin. Trump, unless Trump somehow pivots himself to the center, he could get it to lean, but I doubt it. Same with Rhode Island as well. They would totally vote for against Trump by a likely margin, even with the worst Democrat in Cuomo. Delaware, it's probably could have the possibility of going to lean, so I'll give it that. It's a small enough state, so it's very suburban too, so I think Trump would do pretty decent here. New Jersey as well would probably be a lean margin. They'd vote really for any Democrat against Andrew Cuomo, or no, against Trump. But Andrew Cuomo would be terrible enough of a nominee that he'll do worse in New Jersey than any other Democrat before. In Virginia, just based on New Mexico going red, it would probably go to red against Andrew Cuomo as well. So let me know what you think of this election prediction in the comments below. Andrew Cuomo is a terrible nominee. Democrats should stay far away from him as much as they can. But let me know what you think of this in the comments below. See you guys.